Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of The Twos, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and I'm here to break down all of the action for you from the VFL Women's Cats, who played their round 6 game against the Kangaroos, and also the VFL Men's round 5 game as they took on Carlton. Before we jump into the game summaries and recapping thoughts on some of the individual performances from different players, I wanted to say a big thank you to all of our Hoops Crew Patreon subscribers. This show is an exclusive for Patreon subscribers. We couldn't do it without you. Now, this one is also going up on YouTube. Thought it was a good opportunity to give people a taste of what the Patreon subscribers fund and get access to as part of their subscription. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, why don't you consider going on and having a crack at one of our 7-day Hoops Crew free trials on the Patreon. You get extended coverage of the AFL team. You get Wednesday news wraps with myself and Ben. You get early access behind the play interviews from Paul, as well as a bunch of things like Patreon exclusive coverage of the VFL men's and women's team. So if you like what you see and hear today, then go on over and give us a shot. All right, let's start with the VFL W Cats, who bounced back in a big way after a disappointing loss last week to GWS. They bounced back and claim 4 points against North Melbourne. So let's have a look at that game here for you. So the Cats, they score the first goal of the game. Not too long into it, it was Kiara Woods on debut getting a goal early, and she absolutely tore up the first quarter. I've got to be honest, she was on fire. One of the best first quarters we've seen from any Cat this season, let alone one who was on debut. So she kicked the first goal. North responded not long after, but then it was all Geelong, behind to Chantel Mason, behind to Kiara Woods, behind to Cheryl de Groot. And I was thinking, oh, have we blown our chances here? Are North going to punish us? But it was not to be. The Cats did get another goal. Kiara Woods, the second of the match, her second of the quarter. She got it behind not long after. She had 4 scores in the first quarter. It was looking absolutely dynamic. It was Chantel Mason who kicked a goal just before quarter time to give the Cats a 3-5-23 to 1-6 lead, a deserved lead for the Cats. Second quarter, the teams traded scores. The Kangaroos added a goal just before the end of the quarter, responding to Chantel Mason's second goal of the game. So a lower scoring second quarter there. So halftime, the Cats went in up 4-6-30 to 2 straight 12. North narrowed the margin within the first minute of the third quarter. Kayla Peake kicking that goal after 49 seconds. Alana Barber almost brought the margin back even closer, but that was as close as the margin got for the Kangaroos for the rest of the game, as Geelong were swift and decisive in their response. Brooke Plummer goaled after 6 minutes, 48 seconds. Olivia Ciccolini after 12 and a half minutes, and right before the end of the third quarter, it was Brid O'Rourke, Brid, I've probably stuffed that up, but O'Rourke, I think it's Bridie. O'Rourke kicked a goal on 20 minutes to blow the margin out, 7-9-51 to 3-1-19, and that was a deserved lead for the Cats. They added the first of the last quarter through Chantel Mason after the Kangaroos had a couple of chances to narrow the margin, and that was really all she wrote. The Kangaroos with a couple of goals to finish, but that really just put a little bit of makeup on the scoreline as Geelong ran out 8-11-59 to 5-5-35. Winners, as you can see here, the major stats winners, it was Chantel Mason with 3 goals, 2. It was Kiara Woods kicking 2 goals, 2. And it was Bridie O'Rourke, 1 goal, 1 for the Cats. Mason with 18 touches to go with her 3 goals. Walton, 14 disposals down back, was really good. We'll talk about her a bit more in sort of the individual player performances, as well as Poppy Sharp with 14. Diok for the Kangaroos with 1 goal, 1. Barber, 1-1. Tierney, 1 goal straight. And in the disposals for the Roos, it was De Cosmo with 25, Rhodes with 22, and McSweeney with 22. So that was the result. Those are the major stats getters. That's how it all sort of played out. But I want to talk now from a Geelong perspective about some of the better players on the day. Um, and maybe to start with that, I'll do my best on ground votes, and then we'll talk about maybe some players who were on the fringe who didn't quite get in the votes but still had good games. So I had one vote to Brooke Plummer. I think Brooke Plummer has been really good in the VFL W this season for the Cats. Obviously, an AFLW listed player. In fact, I think all my 3 votes getters uh, were AFLW listed players for the Cats on Saturday afternoon, and that's probably the first time this season. We've had some really good contributions from just VFLW listed Cats this season. But yesterday, I thought some of the AFLW stars really sort of, lifted themselves above the competition. But Brooke Plummer, I love watching the way she goes about the game. If you've not watched the VFLW, if you've not watched the AFLW Cats before, Plummer is such a fun player to watch in that she's just always attacking the game, whether she's got the ball in hand and she's dashing away. She's a great sprinter. And then once she's finished that dash, she kicks long. It's always aggressive. And I just love the way Brooke Plummer takes the game of football on. So I gave her 1 vote. I thought she was good. Um, if you sort of think about her statistically, yesterday she had 1 goal, 13 touches, 5 marks, couple of tackles, a couple of clearances. And I thought she was very good value for 1 vote. My 2 votes go to Bridie O'Rourke. Now, if you've listened to the Chaps Chat Cats for the last few seasons, as we've broken down the AFLW, at times we've talked about in the past, coming up against the Adelaide Crows team a couple of years ago. And, they've got these players that seem like they're about 6.5 foot tall and they can, run incredible 40-yard dashes and they're skilled. It's just like we describe it as they've got players that look like they were grown sort of in a lab. They're football monsters in a way. They're big, they're strong, they're fast, they're skilled. And it's always been an area that we've felt that teams like the Crows separate from the rest of the competition. Watching the VFLW yesterday, the Cats, Geelong's cooked up some footy mutants of their own, and Bridie O'Rourke is absolutely one of those. She was just an electric watch yesterday. So she gets my 2 votes, and 12 disposals, 3 marks, a clearance, kicked 1 goal, 1. But it was the threat she added anywhere she was near the footy, anywhere she was near an opponent. She is one of those players that is big, strong, fast, skilled. And I just think that she and a player that I'm about to talk about for the 3 votes are really going to be pushing for round 1 selection when the AFLW season starts for the Cats. But yeah, Bridie O'Rourke, I thought it was her best game in the hoops so far. She's just growing match to match. And she's just electric. As I said, big and fast. She can get the footy, she can run away with it, but she also can jump and compete in the air. Just a super, super promising talent. So 2 votes for Bridie O'Rourke. Couldn't go past, though, the player I thought was best on ground out of either team, to be completely honest with you. That is Chantel Mason, who was dominant from start to finish. And, we've seen a bit this year with the Cats AFL men's team, where you've got a player like Jeremy Cameron, who is big, strong, fast, etc. And he doesn't just play in and around the forward 50, he floats up the ground. Chantel Mason has really done that for the Cats for the first month and a half of this VFLW season. She's been exceptional. Yesterday was no exception to her exceptionality as she racked up 18 disposals, which was team high. She had 5 marks and 3 goals too. So she led the team for goals. She led the team for touches. She was equal first in marks with Brooke Plummer. Cannot go past Chantel Mason for the 3 votes. And I think, if you ask me right now, I say she's a lock for round 1 for the AFLW. I don't know if maybe she comes into the side for a Shelley Scott. I don't know Um, Aisling Maloney was excellent for the AFLW Cats last season, but we saw towards the end of the year, they even started to move her up onto a wing a bit, getting her to range around the field a little bit more, using her size and athleticism to create scary mismatches for players on the wing from the opposition. I wonder if we see Chantel Mason coming in and whether that allows them to free Aisling Maloney up even more. But Mason is an exceptional talent. And, you know, I was thinking watching this game, I think I tweeted about it on the Chaps account, that the future of the AFLW was on display well and truly in the VFLW yesterday. I remember watching, say, 2 or 3 seasons ago when I first started covering the VFLW for the pod, and you know there was a decisive skill level difference between the VFLW and then up to the AFL level. The structure of the game, it was far more congested, packs forming it, not a lot of footy being played on the outside, not a lot of clean disposal and clean footy skills. The growth in the sport has been absolutely remarkable in the course of a few seasons. And you're seeing players like Chantel Mason and Mia Fuller and the list goes on. Um, Players who seem to have come through from, underage levels now, learning the game from the start. They're not necessarily crossing over from another sport or not crossing over exclusively from another sport. They've been playing footy from a younger age than maybe some of the AFLW players were, say, 10 years ago. And it's it's just such a different game. A couple of seasons on from when I first started watching VFLW, the quality of play is absolutely outstanding, and that gap between VFLW level and AFLW level has just drastically reduced. And I thought you saw a number of players yesterday who are going to be on our TV screens at the highest level of women's footy in the next couple of seasons. So we've talked about um, Brooke Plummer, we've talked about Bridie O'Rourke, we've talked about Chantel Mason, who just her instincts, whether one, clean hands in the marking contest. She leads well, not just inside forward 50, but all around the ground. She works hard to get involved. But then you add to that the fact that she's just instinctive inside forward 50. The ball comes to her. She's just grabbing it, putting it on the boot, and more times than not, she's able to snap a goal from open play. So massively, massively exciting player for the Cats. And all three votes getters for me, hugely exciting futures at Cardinia Park for the AFLW Cats. But let's talk about some of those other players who were in and around it but didn't quite get the votes. I thought Sasha White on debut as well, a Geelong Falcons product, 7 tackles, second most for the team. Thought she did some really good things. Zoe Larkins, again, in terms of her tackling pressure with 6. But Lily Jordan was the player I said I wanted to see have a good game this week. She was one of my players of focus on the preview pod, and she had 10 disposals. So you sort of go, okay, not a heap of touches, but 4 clearances to lead the team, 8 tackles to lead the team. And I thought that was something really impressive about Lily Jordan, is that she impacts and efforts to impact the game when she doesn't have the footy. So even if she's led the team with 4 clearances, she's only had the sort of 10 touches. When she doesn't have the footy, her defensive efforts are exceptional. And I think she's going to grow into a really important midfielder for this Cats VFLW side. So, big tick for Lily Jordan. Another player I need to mention is Denby Taylor. Denby Taylor, I put up a tweet and saying, obviously she's been at AFLW level. She's, had a break from footy, come back. I don't know if she wants to go back to the top level again, but she would be an asset in 2024 for any AFLW team that wanted to sort of sign her. She was sort of representative of how Geelong's whole backline played on the weekend. Very calm, even when under pressure. The ball comes in, she was able to spoil it to the ground in one-on-one contests. And then once it hit the deck, she just fights for it and gets it going Geelong's way. Great on the intercept. She's great getting the ball moving calmly in Geelong's favour in attack. So just super, super impressed with Denby Taylor's performance yesterday. Calm under pressure and one of the most steady heads in that VFLW backline. But that flowed on. I thought Mia Fuller, another assured game, down back, 9 disposals, 5 tackles. And Molly Walton. Molly Walton might be one of the most improved players in this whole VFLW lineup. She had 14 touches, a couple of marks and a tackle. And again, really expertly defended one-on-one situations, bringing the ball to ground and then, very cleverly fighting for it on the ground and just manipulating it into the path of another Geelong player that they could sweep it away. And I thought that was something that Geelong did really well. Obviously, we won the ball around the ground really well, moved it really nicely, going into attack, but we started attack from defense as well as we've done all season yesterday, where North Melbourne were on the rampage, but our defenders were able to turn dangerous situations down back, neutralize them, and then get the ball whisking away towards our attack. So I thought they did massively well, the defense, and yeah, Walton, Fuller, Denby Taylor, all deserving of a big tick. Final player I just want to mention, Sammy Gooden in the ruck. Only the 8 touches, but 4 tackles, 3 marks, 22 hitouts and a clearance. I think Sammy Gooden is playing career best footy. I think she looks fit and firing and in form. Her ruck work was exceptional. And then what I love about Sammy Gooden this year is that once the ball hits the deck, she's able to compete for it. She competes and tackles and fights for the ball, rips it, free of an opponent and gets it moving Geelong's way. And she, along with a number of other cats, have improved their disposal, their speed and efficiency of disposal out of sight. So quick hands, massively impressive from Sammy Gooden. So those are my thoughts on the VFLW result. I want to talk now about the VFL men as they claimed 3 wins from 3 games and looked massively impressive doing it. Massively impressive is just my phrase of the day, I think. So let's start with the timeline. I'll walk you through how the game unfolded in the men. So they were taking on Carlton, a side they beat last season in round 2, fairly comfortably by about 4 goals. This match started really tight, really close. Geelong kicked the opener through Shannon Neal after just 1 minute and 4 seconds, but Liam McMahon responded for Carlton after 9 minutes. Mitch Nevitt extended the Cats' lead again after 12 minutes, and then it was Geelong who kicked the next 2 goals of the game to Gary Rowan and Oscar Riccardi. So at the first change of ends, we had Geelong up 4-6-30 to Carlton's 1 straight 6. And the Cats didn't let up from there. It was Gary Rowan with another goal, Ted Closey with a goal, Connor O'Sullivan with a goal, I believe, from outside 50. It's one of those ones where I think they paid an out of bounds deliberate or an insufficient attempt or whatever they're calling that rule now. And I saw Connor O'Sullivan settling over the ball about 50 out, and I thought, oh, well, he'll probably just put it to the top of the goal square. I'll just make a couple of notes. And then suddenly I heard everyone celebrating and looked around. They're all getting around him. So Connor O'Sullivan dobs one from long range. So Geelong had 3 on the board inside the first 7 minutes of the second quarter, and they weren't finished there. They got another goal to Darcy Edmonds, another one to Toby Conway, his first of the afternoon after 22 minutes. And although Carlton responded with a goal to Will White, the Cats stretched it out with a major to Hamish Sinnott after 31 and a half minutes to take a 10-10-70 to 2-3-15 lead at the major break. And sitting there, I was thinking, how will the Cats come out after halftime? Are we going to really put the foot down? Are we going to put the cue in the rack and just sort of absorb a bit of pressure? Carlton will perk up, etc. And I was thinking, well, what I wanted to see from this team, this was my note in the preview pod, was I wanted to see Geelong hungry and ferocious the whole game in the VFL. Because to me, that would indicate that these guys are hungry for spots. They're hungry to earn a spot at AFL level. Well, didn't they pass that test with flying colours? Carlton get an early goal to Moya, after 2 minutes, 20 seconds. But then Geelong, Shannon Neal, Gary Rowan, Toby Conway, Gary Rowan, Shannon Neal, Hamish Sinnott. What's that? 6 goals? 6 goals in the space of 9 minutes of gameplay. And the game was cooked. It was well and truly done. Geelong, a decisive burst. Liam McMahon pulled one back for the Blues, and Geelong said, fine, we'll score another couple. Ted Closey added his name to the scoreboard. Sean Manor got on there, and the Cats took a 19-11, 125 to 6-4-40 lead at the final change. They kicked the first of the last quarter through Lawson Humphreys, who had another great game in the hoops. Carlton got a couple of goals to sort of finish out towards the end of the game, but it was Geelong with 4 goals, 7 in the last quarter, including an absolute ripper to, I think it was Toby Conway in this patch of play somewhere. Thought he had a last quarter goal. Maybe it was in the second quarter. Yeah, just before three-quarter time was Toby Conway with an incredible goal as a rover off the pack. Geelong running out 23-18, 156 to 8-7-55 winners. A 101-point victory to the Cats. They get the job done over the Blues. Gary Rowan kicking 4 goals too. He is as fit and firing as ever. And I think it tells you where this club is at the moment, that Gary Rowan is, he's kicked 3 goals straight last week. He kicks 4-2 this week. He still is struggling to get his spot back in the AFL team. Shannon Neal bags 3 goals too. Toby Conway, 3 goals, 1. In terms of disposals, it was Mitch Hardy with 25, Ted Closey, 25, Mitch Nevitt, 23. We'll be talking about some of those young Geelong midfielders shortly. For Carlton, it was White with 2 straight, McMahon 2 straight, Nelson 1-1. In the disposals, it was Young with 25, Maher with 22, and Wilson with 21. But this was as dominant performance as I've seen from the Cats against, a pretty decent opposition at VFL level. Yeah, in the few years that I've been covering this team, the hunger and ferocity was well and truly on display. This looked like a team desperate and hungry to earn spots at the next level. And that really was what I went into this game wanting to see. And I just got it in absolute spades. They were ferocious. They were unrelenting. To illustrate, I suppose, the dominance that Geelong had, you can look at things like total disposals. They were plus 91 in total disposals. They had 75 inside 50s to 35. And you think about that, 41 scores from 75 inside 50s is pretty good going. Pretty much a goal at 1 every 3 entries. But you can look at other things too. Clearances, plus 12, marks, 115 to 87. The fact that Geelong only laid 18 tackles in the first 3 quarters, I think really illustrates just how dominant the Cats were all afternoon. It was absolutely thrilling to see. The ball movement was elite, able to sweep the ball from one end to the other in the blink of an eye. And at times, it was a little bit like Cats versus Witches' Hats. It was a good old-fashioned shellacking. Let's do best on ground votes, and then I'll talk about some individual players who were. This was obviously a 101-point win. It's really hard to find, your 3 vote getters when you've got about 8 or 9 players who could be in it. So I had in this game, I had 1 vote to Mitch Nevitt. Paul of the Hoops Crew Network, he'll be happy with how Nevitt went this afternoon. It's back-to-back games for Mitch Nevitt where he's played really well. He was great against the Brisbane Lions last weekend at VFL level. He had 24 touches. They've obviously updated the stats since I put them on my graphic because Mitch Hardy's had a few more as well. Mitch Nevitt, 24 disposals, 5 marks, 5 clearances, 1 goal, 1. I thought that although there was still a couple of those weird kicks where he just misfires on a routine kick, there were also plenty of other times where he made routine kicks routinely. And that's a nice improvement. That's the big knock on him for me has been that he doesn't always make those routine kicks routinely. I think we're seeing an improvement in that. But most importantly, it's everything else that he adds. He's such a good contested mark. He's and this is something I said during the week. It was good. We did Zach Guthrie as our Patreon player focus after the Brisbane game. And something that we took away from that was Zach Guthrie has been at the Cats since 2017, which is absolutely stunning to us to think about how long he's been at the Cats before he's locked himself in. Because you go 2017 to 2021, he was a much maligned player. So that's 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 5 seasons before finally in 2022, he locked down a spot and has been absolutely elite for the Cats since. And I bring Zach Guthrie up because a big part of how and why Zach Guthrie ended up locking down his spot was a simple matter of biology. Zach Guthrie was quite a skinny prospect. It took quite a while before he bulked out to a level where he wasn't going to be pushed around as easily, where he felt more confident crashing packs for marks or spoils and throwing himself into contested situations. And sometimes these things just take time. You can do all the gym work you want. You can, smash all the food and diet plans you want. Sometimes biology takes its time to take its course. And I think we need to remember that when we're thinking about Mitch Nevitt and his development. Now, Nevitt's only been, I believe, at the Cats since 2021, 2022. This is only his, I think, third season at Geelong. So I would say patience, 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 Cats fans. When you think about some of the guys that are going to come up in the votes here, players like Nevitt, Ted Closey, Jai Clark, have some patience because they are young guys. And Zach Guthrie is a great example. And people brought up examples from times gone by as well of Paul Chapman and Jimmy Bartell, having to earn their way up, do the VFL Cats apprenticeship before they were given a spot. It's going to be the same with these guys. And it would not stun me at all if Mitch Nevitt has either 2025 or 2026 as his Zach Guthrie 2022 breakout year. I think we just have to be patient. And I think as Cats fans, we can be patient and we should be patient. This club continues to win. We're 7-0 in the AFL level. And we've got guys like Dempsey who have made the jump up. And I think we're going to see these next generation of players like your Nevitts, your Closeys, your Clarks, your Shannon Neals, Toby Conways, Connor O'Sullivan, etc. They are going to start phasing into this team over the next, say, 2, 3, 4 seasons. But we've just got to have a bit of patience. Mitch Nevitt, he's a tall lad. And I think once he adds that bulk to his frame, he's going to be a really dangerous midfielder. He's going to be that, you know, Dangerfield, Patrick Cripps, Bontempelli type body where he's a midfielder who can rest forward. He's already a really dangerous contested mark. So I think different players mature physically more quickly, more slowly than others. I think Nevitt's a guy that we should just be patient with, as we should have been with Zach Guthrie. And I think that investment of patience from the club and that patience with development will pay off. Mitch Nevitt, great game yesterday. He gets my one vote. Let's be patient with him because I think we've got a star in the making. Sometimes you don't just step in year one, and it's great that he doesn't have to. We're 7-0 without throwing these guys in. Ted Closey gets my 2 votes. Another excellent performance by the Ted. 26 touches, 2 goals, 7 marks, 3 tackles, 3 clearances. Ted Closey, it's amazing, isn't it, the difference that an AFL level ruck can make coming back in because they got excellent service from Toby Conway and the mids feasted. Now, Mitch Hardy, people will probably feel that Mitch Hardy's a bit hard done by having 29 touches, 10 marks, 5 clearances. Didn't think it was his most impactful game. It was a standard Mitch Hardy game, which is excellent. But what I haven't seen this year, Mitch Hardy's probably had 29 touches a game all season. But what I haven't seen as much is what I've been asking to see is these younger crop of midfielders stepping up around him. Now, I think that when they've got a ruckman of the class of Conway, you see them step into step up and play to their potential. Closey, 26 touches, 2 goals, 7 marks, 3 tackles, 3 clearances. What I love about Ted Closey is he's tough, he's gritty, but he's also super clever. Now, he kicked 3 goals straight against Carlton last year. He adds 2 goals this year. I think that's sort of a sneakily underrated part of his game. Like, he is tough and gritty, a willing tackler, a good contested player. But he's also super smart with, how he gets involved in terms of hitting the score sheet. I think he was Geelong's second or third leading goal kicker last season in his first year at the club. So 2 votes for Ted Closey, one of my favorite players, incredibly brave, incredibly smart. I think he has a big future ahead of him. Again, patience, patience, patience. Let's let these guys grow into their bodies and do their VFL apprenticeship and then get into the side. A player who has probably already done the growing and is right on the cusp of cracking the AFL men's side full time is the player who got my 3 votes and I thought was the most outstanding player for either team. It's Toby Conway. Toby Conway is a problem for sides moving forward. He is an absolute monster. 20 disposals, 3 marks, couple of tackles, 6 clearances. Now, 6 clearances was equal game high with Archie Stevens of Carlton. 28 hitouts. Next closest person on the ground was Hudson O'Keefe, who had 14. Alex Murkov with 10. Add to that, Toby Conway drifting forward and snagging 3 goals won, including 2 goals that were kind of like absurd, where he was roving from open play and just collecting the ball, running, snapping around the body. He is as hyped. Like, there's been a couple of years since he arrived at the club. It's like, this is potentially the best club ruckman we've had since Brad Otten's, and people going, oh, let's calm it down. Don't calm it down. He is as hyped. He has the potential. I saw some chat during the week where people were talking about Max Gawn. Is he the greatest ruckman of his generation? Is he one of the greatest rucks of all time? Toby Conway, if he stays healthy and continues to develop on this trajectory, he can be the best ruckman of his generation. Absolutely, hands down. And don't be fooled into thinking that this guy is just your straight up and down tap ruck, who can't move. He just shuffles around between, from stoppage to stoppage. Toby Conway can move. He can jump. His jump is sort of almost defies belief. He goes up in the ruck contest and then he seems to be able to get extra elevation once he's in the air. I don't know. It's like he's got a trampoline under him. So his vertical ability in those tap situations is exceptional. His touch and craft in the ruck contest is too good for the VFL level. This is a bit like watching Ollie Dempsey play VFL last year. He's too good. He was too good for the level, but he just needs that space to open up above him. Might happen this week with how things went at AFL level in the ruck contest. But Conway's exceptional. The way he moves, the way he competes, once the ball hits the ground, once the ball's in contest out of the ruck, he is worth getting hyped about. Toby Conway he's that dude. He's that ruck player. We've just got to keep him healthy. And I think, again, it's okay for us to be a little bit patient. As we said on the Chaps recap on Monday night about this situation where we're rotating 2 for Stanley, 1 for Conway. Let's make the most of it while we can. While we're winning, while everyone's healthy, we haven't had to forcefully put Conway in for 7 games straight. That's a luxury that other teams would sort of kill for, to be able to have, we've got a veteran ruck who's healthy enough to play whenever we want. We've also got the next generation ruckman who's healthy finally. We can sort of just pick and choose as we like. Let's enjoy that as long as we can, because you never know when form or fitness is going to force your hand. But get excited. Be patient, but be excited about Toby Conway because he is a star in the making. And I think it is very accurate to say that he has the capability to be Geelong's best ruckman since Brad Ottens. Um, See how his career goes. I think he's got the upside to be Geelong's best ruck of the 21st century. I think he's got that. He's got that in him. Now, obviously, it's a long way from here to there, but that's the sort of talent package I think you're dealing with when you look at Toby Conway. He's worth the excitement. Let's talk about some other players then from this game who maybe didn't sneak into my votes just before we get out of here. As I said, Gary Rowan, 4 goals, 2 from 12 touches. He had 7 marks, led well, presented well, marked well, kicked well. He was exceptional, Gary Rowan. And I think it says a lot that he hasn't just been an auto selection. If he doesn't get picked in the AFL side this week against Melbourne, it says all you need to know about just how well the Cats are going and just how deep they're batting this season. Likewise, Shannon Neal. Shannon Neal, 3 goals, 2 from 16 disposals, 10 marks, which I believe was the third most on the ground behind McMahon and Nelson of Carlton. Neal with 10 marks. He looked excellent. I've still got a few question marks around his set shot kicking. I think, again, patience with young full forwards. I think they can take a long time to develop their mentality. I think you saw that early on in Tom Hawkins' career. It took quite a while before Hawkeye really grabbed the bull by the horns. And that, for me, is sometimes as much them recognizing how good they are than anything. It's that sense of self-belief that they're gonna go back and trust their technique and that the whole operation, I suppose, is gonna work time in, time out. So, good signs from Shannon Neal, who bags the 3 goals, 2 and the 10 marks. Emerson Jeka, 10 marks, 22 touches. The disposal is sometimes really wildly varying from Emerson Jeka, but some signs there that he could come in and play a role for the Cats defensively over the next few seasons, perhaps. Mitch Hardy, 29 touches, 10 marks, 5 clearances. Unlucky. He was probably my next player in terms of votes, but some people have asked during the week, when are we going to see Hardy at next level? Surely he didn't just get drafted because of blah, 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 blah. He's unlucky. He's unlucky that he's playing at the club that he's playing at, that the midfield is functioning how it is. I think he is an exceptional VFL midfielder. I think he is one of the best midfielders in the VFL competition. I have some question marks around whether there could be some elements of his game that get found out at the next level. I don't think this is going to sound really weirdly specific, but just sometimes with his disposal where, maybe a drilled kick gets to his teammate in a good position, at the right time and at the right speed without the ability for an opponent to intercept. There's just been some times where he floats the kick and at VFL level, I think you get away with that. And again, I'm nitpicking, but I think it's worth nitpicking because these are the things that are separating him from an AFL debut. I suppose my dog is clearly unhappy that Mitch Hardy's not getting a run at VFL level, at AFL level. So I basically think Mitch Hardy's only going to get a run if there's a significant gap opens up because of injury. That's what it comes down to. I think Mitch Nevitt's ahead of him. I think Ted Closey might be ahead of him in terms of people were saying after this game, or maybe Hardy will come in for Dangerfield. I don't think so. Atkins will come in for Dangerfield. Atkins was the sub. I just think there's too many names ahead of him, too many younger names ahead of him that the club will want to get games into. I have a feeling that Mitch Hardy was drafted mainly as an experienced top-up player at VFL level, which has been massively handy given that we lost Jai Chalcraft this year from the VFL side. And I think he's like an absolute, if we have like 5 or 6 midfielders injured, break the glass in case of emergency and get him in. I could be wrong, but that's the impression I get. And I think it's worth remembering that when you think about how Geelong drafts and develops. Some of these guys are probably drafted. I'm thinking about players like Emerson Jeka, Mitch Hardy, etc., where it's like, let's have a look at them. we'll see how they go. We know they're mainly going to play VFL, but if they happen to develop fast, and well enough, maybe they could slot in and play AFL. But you know, there's a bit of crossover between the VFL list and the AFL list, and you've got to make sure you're topping up that VFL list with quality players as well. And I think Mitch Hardy probably fits into that. Could be wrong, but now Cam Guthrie's back as well, so good game for Mitch Hardy. I don't think he can play any better. I just wonder if there's a couple of parts of his game um, that maybe they just see as those when they're splitting hairs between the different midfielders. They just go, oh, don't know if that's going to hold up at the next level. It holds up well at VFL level. Um, I've had a little bit of a question mark about pace. Could he get caught out a bit defensively for speed at the next level? But he's playing a vital role for this VFL side, and he gets a massive tick from me for that. Let's whip through another couple really quickly, and then I'll get you out of here. Who else did I want to talk about? Jai Clark. Jai Clark, 22 touches, 5 tackles, 4 clearances. Again, if Mitch Hardy was the fourth person in terms of my 3 votes, so he was the first one to miss out, Jai Clark was probably the second person to miss out. I thought he played really well, particularly in the first half. I think he had 16 touches to half time, so maybe faded a little bit or had less game time in the second half, but I like that the speed of his decision making has hit a nice balance. He's not holding on to it too long, but he's not rushing it either. I thought he made some really good, sharp decisions, but without rushing the process too much either. Oisin Mullen, probably the second time in the last month that I've said he's just played his best game in the hoops. 17 touches, 6 marks, couple of tackles, kicked a goal, his first goal in Geelong colours. Someone tweeted at me, has he lost his power since he cut his hair? And I said, no, I think he's supercharged it, to be honest. I liked the long hair, but since he's chopped the locks, I think he's had some of his best footy in a cat's Guernsey. So he looks really, really well developed. And the thing that stood out to me that I think is a big tick for his development, there's a moment where Geelong trying to kick the ball back laterally across defensive 50. They kick it a bit behind Oisin Mullen, who's next link in the chain. He runs back to get the loose ball. He's being pursued by a Carlton player. He collects it. He sidesteps the Carlton player, takes off and runs through 50, has a bounce, a comfortable bounce, not the bounce of a player who looks like, oh, I'm still adjusting to this different footy shape and etc. And he takes off, gets the ball moving in Geelong's direction. And I think that is a massive tick for him, that he just looks like a footy player playing footy, an extremely athletically gifted footy player playing footy. So I don't think it's too long at all before we see Oisin Mullen in the AFL side full time. Maybe 2025 is his breakout year where he takes over someone else's position full time, but he's certainly putting in the work and putting in the improvement. Who else? Gosh, there's so many players to get to. Quickly, Connor O'Sullivan continues to look confident and comfortable at VFL level. I think we've seen some improvement in him since he debuted at AFL level. I think he had 24 touches last week and 6 or 7 marks against Brisbane in the VFL. This week he has 19 touches, 6 marks and kicks a goal. I think we're seeing exactly the right amount of development you'd want and progression from a rookie like Connor O'Sullivan. The Mark Blixarves comparison, the tall player who can play key position but also drift out onto a wing. It's apt. It's very accurate, I think. Now, whether he transforms himself into as good a player as Mark Blixarves, who knows? But the potential is certainly there. The last couple I'll just hit on. Sean Manor, 2 goals, 1, 7 marks, couple of tackles. Thought he there was a couple of moments where I think maybe a few weeks ago he would have gone for a shot for goal from an absurd angle, and instead he tried to center the ball for a teammate. Liked seeing that. I think that's a part of his game that a few of us agreed that was probably one of the reasons why he was back in the twos, was he burnt some teammates a few too many times at AFL level, and it was like, okay, just drift back, learn that Geelong way, I suppose, of sharing it around. And I think he's doing that. It was a fairly selfless game from him. And last AFL listed rookie I'll just hit on, Lawson Humphreys, 20 touches, 5 marks, and kicked a goal. that is your standard Lawson Humphreys game at the moment. So I don't know how much you've heard about Lawson Humphreys, but what I would say is when Lawson Humphreys plays footy for the VFL Cats, he gets about 20 touches, kicks a goal, and lays a few tackles. Silky, silky mover. And what I love is there was a moment, I think in the first quarter, where he put a move on a defender, sort of sidestepped his way through traffic. And instead of having a rush of blood to the head, he just pulled a nice kick short straight into the path of either Rowan or to mark inside forward 50. So that composure, sometimes you see players, there was a great example of excellent play from one of Fremantle's players last night. Got the ball in space, tearing towards 50, cut inside on a player, and instead of blazing away deep, just popped a nice little kick to a marking target. That's what we got from Lawson Humphreys yesterday. Making full use of his speed, athleticism, that lateral quickness to make space for himself, but then not blazing away, just really calmly and composedly. Is that a word? Don't know. If it isn't, I've made it up. Using the ball. So good tick for him as well. All right, that's it. That was your VFL W round 6 and your VFL men's round 5 recap podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Spotify and you want more of this type of coverage of the VFL, then you're going to have to head over to the Hoops Crew Patreon channel. Start a 7-day free trial. You get 2 VFL episodes a week, a preview and a recap. You get Wednesday news shows with myself and Ben, early access episodes of Behind the Play interview shows, extended podcasts, things like the Chaps Chat Cats, and other stuff. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you to the Patreon subscribers who support and fund these exclusive episodes. Appreciate you guys massively. We love having you on board. Until next time, go Cats!